Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing one of our favorite kinds of videos, which is a race tips based on our experience. So today we're going to be talking about North Carolina 70.3 in Wilmington. It is coming up in a little over a week.
Let's go.
And Caleb actually did this race in 2022 and 2023. So in 2022, Caleb raced, the kids and I came and spectated. And then last year, 2023, we both did it together. So we just want to share the things that we have learned. So last year, it was my first 70.3 and the whole split transition thing. Like I just didn't really know what I was doing. And so Caleb helped me out so much and taught me all the things. And so we just want to give back to the triathlon community by sharing the things that we found helpful with this race. So we're gonna jump right in. We have 10 tips of things that we think will help make the race go smoother. And these are all 10 things that you can do Thursday, Friday, Saturday before the race actually even begins.
Ultimately, we really just want to minimize stress.
Yeah.
Like going to a triathlon can be really stressful. And so how do we help share what we know to minimize the stress, help you be more prepared, and go in with a plan so that you're not scrambling at the last minute hoping that you got everything where it needs to go. It can be scary. So let's jump in.
Yeah, so tip number one, and I think this is probably the best tip for any race, is check the athlete guide, especially pay close attention to the schedule, and just map out your weekend and plan out when you're gonna do the things that you need to do. So they have athlete briefings on Thursday and Friday. And then there's also the Athletes Village has the store if you want to get any merchandise. And then also keep in mind that on Saturday, okay, so I have gotten used to Sunday races. So there are a few times in the video where I mean to say the day before the race and I say Saturday. What I mean to say is Friday. So I'm going to drop it in. Friday is what I mean to say, Friday. And then also keep in mind that on Friday, you will need to go to T1 and T2, and those are on opposite sides of the city. So as you're planning your weekend, just make sure that you give yourself plenty of time. Make sure you figure out which athlete briefing you're gonna go to. If you wanna go shop, make sure you allow yourself time to do that, keeping in mind too that the coveted Ironman shirt with the names on the back is a really popular item and it may go quickly, so you might want to prioritize doing that in the beginning, and then also allow yourself plenty of time to get to both of the transition areas on Friday. As well as, we'll get into a little bit later, if you want to do a shakeout, swim, bike, run, just make sure you're planning all of those things as you kind of map out your weekend.
All right, tip number 2, have your transition bags ready before you even travel. And one huge tip that I received before Ironman Chattanooga this year was someone actually took the large, I think they're 2 or 2.5 gallon Ziploc bags, and went ahead and wrote on it. I'll drop in a picture here so you can see what we're talking about. But they wrote with a Sharpie everything that's gonna go in their morning of bag, their T1 bag, their T2 bag. That's tip number 2. Have everything separated ahead of time so that when you do get to the city, you can easily divvy those things out into the specific bags that you'll receive at packet pickup.
Yeah. And you may use some of those things throughout the weekend. Like for example, if you have your swim cap or your goggles or whatever, you may use those, but if you have it written on the outside of the bag in Sharpie, then once you take it out, you know, oh, I need to put it right back in after you've used it.
That's right. And if nothing else, it helps you know what you need to put in each bag. So very helpful tip. Also, this is a pro tip that Katie did. If you don't want to waste your Ziploc bags, instead of writing on the Ziploc bag, just write on an index card and then put that in the bag. Save yourself 75 cents. Tip number 3.
Okay, tip number 3 is to familiarize yourself with the transition areas. So there are 2 different transition areas. There's the one when you come out of the swim, and it's always a good idea, I think Caleb taught me this and it has helped so much, is to just trace your path that you will go on race morning and just practice walking through it a couple times so you have that muscle memory. So for the swim, you know, you'll come out of the water and you'll go through a grassy field, and then just as you get your number and you've checked in, know where your spot is and practice through it a couple times. Come out of the water, I'm gonna go this way across the field, then I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna get my bike, and then I'm gonna go out this side. And so just practicing through that a couple times, and then same thing again.
Hang on. With transition 1, if you haven't seen it yet, this is another helpful tip with that is walk through it. It's a long transition.
Yeah.
So it's maybe half a mile, I would think. It's a long transition. So it's helpful to know and be prepared so that you're not running around like in the race thinking, oh my gosh, how far do I have to go? So yeah, that's a great tip to walk through.
Practice doing that a couple times, knowing how far down on the racks, because there's a lot of racks. I think they said there's like 3,500 people doing it this year. So it's a lot of bike racks. So just kind of remembering where yours is. And then same thing for T2, you're gonna come into the parking lot and the like top end of the parking lot, and you're gonna go down, drop your bike off, and then start out on the run course. It's the northwest side of the parking lot. So just again, we'll drop a picture so you guys can see what it looks like, but just familiarizing yourself with where you're coming in, where you're going to for your number, and then where you're leaving that transition area, and just getting as familiar as you can with that.
The first year that I did it, I got in and into transition 2 and went to the wrong rack. And so it just took me a little bit to think like, oh no, I'm on the other side, and that's valuable time that you don't want to spend in a race doing absolutely nothing other than looking for your bike. It's a miserable feeling. So don't set yourself up for that kind of failure. All right, the next tip, practice your swim, bike, and run. And I think Wilmington has a great setup for this because where transition is, you're close to the water that you'll be swimming in. And so I'll start with the swim. What I did this last year was went up close to the swim start and got into the water. I did not wear my wetsuit because I didn't want to get it all wet. So it was quite chilly, and it was a chilly morning. I got in the water and swam up against the current for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And I'll just say I didn't go very far. And then I turned around and swam back down for about the same amount of time and went much further. And what I will say is all the docks look exactly the same. So find yourself a good like easy in, easy exit point so that you can get in and out of the water and know where you are. You had a little bit of a different swim experience because you went down the course. So
yeah, so there is a group, I think it's called the Cape Fear Tri Club, and they will do a big group like shakeout swim on Friday morning, and we were planning on doing that. However, we got there a little bit later, and then we had a really hard time finding a parking spot. And so by the time we actually did get parked and made it our way over there, it was finished. So I cannot tell you what that was like, but I'm sure it was awesome. So we actually ended up, there were some other people that were kind of like straggling in throughout the morning, and so there were lots of other people that did the same thing as us and just kind of did a shakeout swim on their own. So there were a few other people that got into the water, and we just went with the current up to, I think it was the blockade runner.
You basically swam the first half of the course, so the first, like just the long stretch before you turn left at the blockade runner. So yeah, about half of the course, and it took 15-20 minutes. And really fast swim.
Some people have mentioned like salt water and being worried about that, and I'll just say personally, like it didn't bother me at all. But it was just nice to be in the water and get familiar with where I was going to be going in the next morning. So definitely recommend that.
So the bike, this is also a nice place because it's flat. There's a lot of people that are going to be out before they check their bikes in doing like a last minute shakeout ride. And this is also like a key point because you've probably seen by now that you will ride over some metal grates, some metal bridges. There is one like within a half mile. I rode over it, and it eased my fears the first time that I did it because I didn't think that it was that sketchy. I didn't think it was bad. I know a lot of people do. So for what it's worth, I think it's worth just going over, checking it out. You also did it and found that to be very helpful for race day. And then you check your bike in. There's a nice place to go for a shakeout run. There's a lot of sidewalks, and it's really pretty there, right along where the swim course is or behind where the course actually doesn't go, but there's a nice sidewalk and neighborhood, I think. So really beautiful places to run. It's all easy to do, all from right around T1.
Mm-hmm. And if you have kids, there's a playground right there too, which is always a nice bonus.
Yeah. Tip number 5, I would recommend bringing some trash bags and grocery bags, like reusable grocery bags, to cover up anything that you don't want to get wet. It does rain at the beach, shockingly. But my first year, it didn't rain, but it was so damp that whenever I got there, I was convinced that it had rained that overnight because like everything was soaking wet. So I think it's worth, like if you have electronics or if you just don't want your seat, your handlebars to get soaking wet, just bring some trash bags, tie those things down. I use like some twine and just keep a big spool of that in my transition bag so that I can tie everything down good. And they may or may not let you cover up like disc wheels or your wheels or anything, but just cover up your gears and things that you don't want to get wet because it can get wet there.
Yeah, so this is for Friday when you drop off your bike.
Yep, and then race morning, you'll be able to untie it, pop that stuff off, no problem, and you'll have a nice dry bike.
Yeah, so that's T1. So what do you need to drop off on Friday? T2.
Friday at T2 is your run stuff. So that will be your run shoes, if you want socks, your bib, and if you have it on a belt or however you want to attach it to you, and any kind of hat, sunglasses, handheld water bottle, things like that. You will not have access to that on race morning. So that's a key point. You're gonna drop it off and you will not have access to it on race morning. As you drop off your bag, you're actually gonna tie it up to the rack. And so just know that you're gonna tie it up. Don't tie a knot that is impossible to untie because again, you won't have access to it on race morning, so you won't have to be able to lay it out on the ground. It's gonna be tied up to the rack. So make it as easy on yourself as possible. Tie some kind of bunny knot.
A bow or something, yeah.
That's easy to undo because on race morning, the last thing you wanna be doing is trying to find some scissors or a pocket knife or just tear the bag up, and don't put yourself under that kind of stress. Let's power through the last 5.
Okay, so tip number 6 is if you are staying downtown or if you're parking your car downtown and you are taking the bus over to the T1 area on race morning, we recommend taking as early a bus as possible. We were one of the last buses and it was late. We stood and waited a while in the parking lot. So you get on the bus or you wait right by the parking lot that is T2. So we stood there and waited a long time. And then by the time we got to T1, we were scrambling and they were kind of like yelling at us, you guys need to get on the shuttles. It's time to go to the swim start.
We're shutting it down.
And we were just kind of, it was not the way that you want to start your race morning. So just get up earlier. In the grand scheme of things, it's worth it. You're not going to lose that much sleep. Just get up a little bit earlier and be on one of the first buses so that you have plenty of time to get your stuff set up.
Number 7, you don't want to leave anything in T2 that you cannot fit in your bike gear bag. So when you get out of the swim and come into transition, you're gonna put on your bike stuff and put all your swim gear in there. Anything that doesn't fit in that bag is at risk for getting left in transition or lost or moved to lost and found. There's no guarantee that you'll get it back. So you wanna make sure that anything that is in T1 gets in that bag because it's going to get transported to the finish area so that you can pick it up at the end of the race.
Yeah, so you will not go back to T1. Like that's the end of T1. When you come out of the water and put all your wetsuit and swim cap and goggles and everything in that bag and then you get on your bike and go, that's it. Volunteers are going to take that bag and transport it to the race finish. So that's it.
Heard lots of stories of people that kind of looped their wetsuit over the bar and they were not complaining. They were trying to find them after the race. So don't do that to yourself. A second piece on that is, I mentioned tying up the bags in T2 for your run stuff. The night before, you also tie up your bag in transition 1 that has your bike stuff in it. And I have heard from several people that they left their stuff out on the ground or they left their bag on the ground and fire ants were in that field area and got in their stuff. You don't want to be putting your bike shoes on that are covered in fire ants. Also, I mentioned that you're running through a grassy field, so you may want to bring a towel or two so that you can dry your feet off and get all the dirt and grass and stuff off of your feet. Again, those are all things that you want to make sure they can fit inside of that bag whenever you are out of the swim and onto the bike.
Yeah, So another tip is, and this is tip number 8, is after you've gotten all your stuff settled on race morning at T1 and you're ready to hop on the bus to go over to the swim start, take a few minutes, get a pair of Crocs, or that's what we used was Crocs, some other slides, something, and walk down to where you actually get out of the water and leave some shoes there. And you will see, because there will be a whole row. Everybody has done the same thing. We actually had a hard time even finding space for our Crocs because everybody else had done the same thing. Because like Caleb mentioned earlier, you have about a half a mile from when you get out of the water until you make it over to that grassy field. And if
I have little tender baby feet.
And I do too. So we were so glad that when we got out of the water, we were able to slip our feet into our Crocs. So if you just take a few minutes and walk down there and drop your Crocs off.
Something that you can run or walk in safely. Like you don't want to put flip-flops if you plan on running a 6-minute pace out of there. So something that you can move comfortably and safely. Yeah.
And then after you are done, you can stuff those in your bag with your wetsuit and goggles and swim cap and everything. So you will see them again. You just need them there for that short period of time to protect your feet.
Number 9.
Tip number 9 is once you have gotten on the shuttle and it takes you over to the swim start, you will be in a parking lot and everybody will just kind of be in like a waiting stage until it's actually time to start. I highly recommend, you will see lots of beach access signs. Cut through one of those and just go over and stand on the beach for a few minutes and watch the sunrise. That for me was just like the calming few minutes that I needed because I was feeling really anxious and really nervous, and just, it was quiet. There were maybe a few other people over there, but not many. And like we were standing there and watching, you know, because it's facing the east. So you're watching the sun come up and it's just beautiful. And I highly recommend if you have any kind of nerves, you just need a few minutes. That was a great few moments before the storm.
Katie mentioned race morning. Tip number 10 is your morning clothes bag. Take advantage of that. So we had some friends that went a couple years ago and it was really chilly race morning, and all they had was just their race kit and no jacket, no sweatpants. And it was chilly. So do yourself a favor, you wanna stay warm and ready to go for the race and not huddling around, you know, trying to find something warm. So wear a sweatshirt, sweatpants, something that you can tuck in that morning clothes bag. It's really nice because as you're walking up to the swim start, there's a table that you drop it off at that's, you know, maybe 4 or 5 minutes away from the swim start. So you can really wear that up until the very end. That's really nice. And then the second piece to this is wear some throwaway flip-flops. The parking lot, I don't know if they were repaving or something, but it was very bad last year with just gravel. It was bad to walk on and we were all hurting. So I think you might have even took somebody else's flip-flops that had discarded them earlier. Anyways, you don't want to be scrambling and on sore feet before the race even starts. So bring some throwaway flip-flops or throwaway shoes that you've trained in up to this point and they're no good. It's a great opportunity. Wear them to the swim start and there's trash cans right there, good to go, and your feet will thank you. At least mine did. There are your top 10 tips. I'm so excited for you if you were racing Ironman North Carolina this year or anytime in the future. So excited for you. I hope you have an awesome race and I hope these tips help you out. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments and we'll do our best to help. We're gonna be rooting for you guys on race day. So good luck. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet for more tips and more race videos. And let's do this. See you on the next one.